Hello, and welcome back. Now, you all are probably aware, if you've been following the show, that I've been doing a multicultural series of late. And for instance, last show we covered some Native American issues and really got some information about that. Well, I decided, and it occurred to me, that mayhaps people would be interested in tracking some of their own culture. On today's show, I brought a guest in who can help us learn about genealogy, which is how one goes about tracing back their own culture and history. Now, my guest is Vanita Morgan, and she is here, and she's very excited to tell us a little bit more about that. Vanita, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I've gotten to a little bit of the beginnings of genealogy. What can you tell us about that? I mean, what exactly is genealogy? I mean, I gave a basic definition, but you probably are a little more familiar with that.
Genealogy is the study of one's history, of one's family, of one's ancestry. Mm-hmm. And you see genealogy around you every day. Anytime you see a family walking down the street or in the park with their child, that's genealogy. When you see a grandparent babysitting their young grandchild, that's genealogy.
It's living genealogy.
Yes.
Right. That's great. That's great. Now, for people who are interested, and now I know that you have actually done some work on this. Am I correct? You have actually traced some of your own family history?
Yes, I am the historian for the Demery, Farley, Sias, Taylor family reunion. And in beginning your genealogical research, you want to interview your family members.
Okay.
Interview hopefully some of the older family members who can remember their parents, some dates, some places, some times, some areas, birth dates, birthplaces, death areas, cemeteries. You want to start out by interviewing, some, like I said, of your family members. And from there, it's just a whole world of information that you can obtain. Okay,
so the first step you want to do is actually to begin gathering information through family interviews. Then.
Right.
Now, I have a question for you. So I would assume from that you really need to have family support in a sense for this. Do you ever run across in your own search? Did you run across situations where maybe that was in the family and they didn't want to talk, or where you might have had people who were shy? How do you overcome obstacles like that?
Okay, I actually took a tape recorder one time to a great uncle and aunt and try to interview them with that tape recorder. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, they were a little shy and they wouldn't open up. So what I did the next time I came around, I hid the tape recorder and I actually did get the taping of them. So you do face obstacles, but you try to find ways to kind of go around those obstacles. And you do come across cousins, family members that, that try to discourage you from your research, but you don't let that stop you. It's a very exciting and interesting journey, and I would recommend it to anybody.
Okay. Now, what do you think would be some reasons why some people might not want to trace history or might be just uninterested in it? Do you think maybe just in this day and age of 1999, people are just so busy with trying to move forward that they just don't want to look into their roots? Or, I mean, do you feel that's important? I'm sure.
I think one reason that people limit themselves is that they feel they might come across some information that they do not really want to know. And you've heard the saying, cousins marrying cousins and things of that nature. So, people limit themselves by not wanting to find out, but by going back into time, you do build your historical knowledge. Actually reading the history books is one thing, but seeing on paper what you have read is another thing. It just opens up a lot more doors and avenues for you.
And it connects you to the history, I'm sure, in a very unique way. You feel a part of it.
Yes.
It's not as distant, as objective.
Right. And you find out so many interesting things. In beginning my genealogical research and talking with family members, I learned a lot of information that I would never have learned. Some very interesting things that I've learned and come across, and I'm like, oh wow, and it made me feel better about who I am, and learning about where I came from and the things that my ancestors had to deal with, and the accomplishments they made. So it just makes me want to better myself and be the best person I can be, and just don't let nothing stop me, because I have this background of people behind me who were so strong that I need to get that strength from them. I have that strength from them, and I can do anything I want to do. So,
okay.
you know,
yeah, it's great.
There's so many reasons why genealogy is such a great hobby.
Definitely. Well, now, once you have gathered this information and you found out about, you've got that foundation of your history and of your particular ancestry, and you've got these, the dates, names, places, you have all this information. What do you do with all that information? Where do you go with it? How do you turn that into a trail?
Okay, you take that information that, of course, that you've interviewed your family members with, you put it on paper.
Okay.
There are lineage charts or pedigree charts that you can generally obtain from state archives buildings. Each, the capital of each state has what's called an archives building.
Okay.
And generally they'll keep handouts of pedigree charts or lineage charts that you can use, free charts that you can use, and you can take with you and actually start plugging down that information that those family members gave you. Okay, so that's the beginning, writing down exactly what they gave you, and then from there, of course, you can go to the census records, you can go to the Soundex records, you can go to the military records, the voter registration records. You can go to the cemeteries and kind of plug in that data, and then, you know, and put it all together. It's like a big puzzle.
Okay, yes, it does sound like a big puzzle, and
Yes.
you're getting into a large, so just a large piece of it there.
Yes.
But okay, so say we have someone who's got a couple of names of perhaps grandparents or great-grandparents and dates, and they are, say, local to the North Carolina area, maybe perhaps even to the Triangle area, perhaps Raleigh. Raleigh's the capital of North Carolina.
Right.
So the first step would be to go to the State Archive building in Raleigh.
Right. If okay, and there are a lot of ifs. Are the grandparents still living? Okay, these grandparents are still living. I would go to their birth record.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if the grandparents are still living, they would know who their parents were more than likely, right?
Right.
Okay. So if the grandparents are living, and you know the great grandparents, and the great grandparents more than likely will have died by now, right? You can go to a death certificate.
Okay.
And on that death certificate, that'll take you back one more generation.
Okay, so another step.
And it just keeps going on and on. And from that death certificate, you take those names and you go another step further, because they'll more likely have died.
Right.
Now, true death records weren't obtainable or weren't recorded until the early 1900s. But getting those names from the early 1900s can take you back several steps in the census. The census records. The
census records, you mentioned that earlier. So through census records, you can track further information or get further clues?
Yes, yes. And being that this is North Carolina, you go to the State Archives building in Raleigh.
Okay.
Raleigh has surrounding states, Soundexes, and Raleigh also contains every state's census records. Okay. Census records are taken, of course, every 10 years. Now, the last census record that is obtainable is 1920, because it's published 72 years after the date that is obtained. Okay, so 72 plus 20 is 1992. So in 1992, we were able to access the 1920 census records. Due to the Privacy Act, we cannot obtain the 1930 census until 72 years after 1930.
So that would be 2002, I believe.
2002,
okay.
You will be able to look on the 1930 census.
Okay.
So the most recent census is the 1920, and then more than likely your great-grandparents
can get you,
or even some grandparents. My grandparents are on the 1920 census. On the census, it'll list the head of the household, the spouse, if there was a spouse, and the children. Whoever lived in that household will be listed on the census. Approximate ages, year born, year of birth, place of birth, and approximately the amount of money, like the land that they lived on or their property was worth.
So there's a lot of information that can be gleaned just from getting census records.
Right.
Now tell me something. You make this sound very easy, Vernita. You make this sound very easy.
It is very
but tell me, now for someone who mayhaps is just starting out on this, is it very difficult to go to these records? There must be massive. How is there assistance, or how does one learn to sift through those records?
Okay. Well, for North Carolina, you can generally necessarily go to the to your public library. And your library more than likely will have a North Carolina census database, okay, the microfiche. And yes, there is usually a person there who can assist you. What you need to know, though, before you go there is you need to know, of course, approximately what dates are you looking for. Are you looking for someone who is listed on the 1910 census, the 1920 census, the 1900 census, you know, every 10 years? Now, the 1890 census was burned in the fire of Chicago, and that Chicago had a big fire in 18.
Everyone knows the song.
Yes.
Yes.
So only a few of those records are obtainable, but all of the other censuses, you know, up till 1920, would definitely be there for North Carolina. And you can go, and people, I found people to be very, very good help whenever I go to the library. Census, as I said, was taken every 10 years, and what they did is the numerators went from household to household and actually wrote down the people who lived in that household. Well, Soundex, S-O-U-N-D-E-X, Soundex records are indexed to the census, okay? So using a Soundex record would make the census records a lot easier.
Okay.
You go to the Soundex, it's alphabetical, and there is a special system that you need in order to look up names on the Soundex record. They cross out the vowels. You know, you just to get your last name, cross out all the vowels, and it's a certain system, and there is a booklet that explains the system. It's very easy.
So you're saying it's very user-friendly?
Very user-friendly,
well,
yes.
now tell me, I know that you have done some research, obviously in the local North Carolina, in the Raleigh area. Are there any other archives that you've been to, a national archive or anything like that?
Yes, I was able to go to the National Archives building for about a week. I spent
really?
in the National Archives building in D.C., Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
That experience was very fascinating. You know, being that when I go to the library and I look up this information, it's maybe myself and 2 or 3 other people. When I went to the National Archives building in Washington, D.C., I got there early, okay, because I didn't know what to expect. I got there before they opened. 200 people had arrived in that building before 15 minutes after they had opened.
Wow.
Yes.
So this is obviously an interest that is very, very strong.
Yeah, so if I had not gotten there early, I would not have been able, and when I say over 200, there are about 200 microfilm machines that are available. All of them were already full 15 minutes after the doors were open. There are a lot of rooms in the National Archives building that are what I call public protected. In other words, you cannot take a purse in that room because these records are so old, particularly military records.
Okay, sure.
These records are so old, and of course, you have a person, a genealogist who want to take the record with them, you know, so they understand that people want to keep some of these records, but no, in order to not allow someone to take some of these older records or preserved records, they make a lot of demands on us. You can't take this in. You can't take that. You can only take a pencil or a pen. You can, you can't make a copy of this document. So there are a lot of laws and some of the rules in some of the rooms, in the National Archives building. So that was fascinating for me too. I'm
sure it kind of makes you feel like you're on your own little adventure, so to speak.
Yes, it was very nice, very good. It's a very good experience.
Excellent.
Another location in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, is where the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that group or that organization is one of the foremost runners in genealogical research.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, I mean.
And you can find LDS, Latter-day Saints Family History Center, usually in some of the major cities in each state. So you can go to those areas, and they're very, very helpful also.
Well, I don't think I even realized that. So they have centers, a strong genealogical support system in place.
Right.
And then after you get all of this information, because you've been to all these places, and it seems like you were able to put together quite a bit of information to carry forth your family history and everything. I don't know, some of our views here, I see some
after you get all that information, you can present it to your family members at a family reunion. You can cake up a family reunion, and it'll build and it'll build and it'll build. you know, and you can present that information.
Well, I've
your
noticed here,
family.
just so some of our viewers can see that you have some like historical books that you've put together for your particular family group and everything.
Each family reunion that we have a family reunion every 2 years. We try to present a souvenir booklet that contains the genealogical research up to this point that has been done, and the T-shirts and everything else are just a plus. But definitely, this booklet is important.
That's wonderful. Well, Vernita, I want to thank you so much for being with us
Thank you.
for this Eyes show and presentation, and for giving our viewers this information on how to research their history. For you all at home who want to get involved with this, there's several websites and phone numbers that you can call to get further information, and we'll have that information for you at the end of the show. And I'm Darlene McLeod. Thank you very much.
That was good stuff. You know, looking up your family history can be very exciting and stimulating, and you'd be surprised what you could find out. So I would suggest everyone, you know, sort of get involved in that. That was really great. Okay, now I'd like to bring on board our co-host also for this week, and she's a regular, and of course I know that all of you remember her and will recognize her as well. Melody Morgan.
Well, Ken, I'm very excited about this summer and everything that's coming up. There's a lot of surprises that you have in store for everybody. A little surprise I have myself is something I'm veering off on. It's still going to be related to healing, kind of an alternative form of it. I'm sure everybody's familiar or heard of the term astrology. It's no big surprise, but it does have healing factors and a lot of other aspects to astrology. It's a very broad topic, one which I want to get into a little bit more detail. Well, what I wound up doing is interviewing a professional astrologer, and her name is Giza Kelly. And she's going to give us an overview kind of different healing aspects of astrology, or some subtle aspects about it, things that people are probably more familiar with, like horoscopes. And I'll just let you guys take a look and find out what else there is that's in store for you. Where did your interest in astrology begin?
I've been interested in astrology since I was quite young, and what I remember is watching for and reading Jean Dixon's column in the Philadelphia Inquirer, and being fascinated by how some of the things she said were so darn accurate for not just myself but other people around me. And I realized that there must be a whole lot more behind this than what was just being shown in that little bit of information there. And so I started pursuing it relentlessly pretty much from then on, and have been fascinated by how accurate and effective it can be.
What do you find pretty much most helpful or purposeful in astrology?
I would say that the personal application of it is the most profound positive thing about astrology. People can use astrology to understand the relationships in their lives and the interrelatedness of events in the world. And it's like a weather report. You can use it as a weather report to know when things might happen or when there's going to be a particularly stressful time. And with that overview, you can be prepared and be more understanding of upcoming events, and also have a little more compassion for yourself and compassion for other people in your life, so that it really does like lubricate life a little bit and lend some sweetness to life. It gives one more understanding of why things get so comical in life at times and very difficult at times. I find that it really gives people a lot more compassion for life in general.
Well, that's definitely good to have. What would you say is your particular approach to astrology?
I have a very soul-oriented approach to astrology. My top priority in life really is to not only understand my own soul's purpose, but to really encourage other people to be in not just recognition with, but also in harmony with their soul's purpose. And so my work specifically is focused upon helping people understand how they got caught up at some part of their lives, where they may have gotten tangled up in a personality issue and a self-worth issue, and help them untie those places, because most of us have places where we've gotten blocked. The interesting thing is that our blocks eventually turn into our greatest assets. The places where we have had our greatest difficulties and our greatest challenges ultimately become the source of our greatest wisdom and our greatest talents. So I really love using astrology as a way of helping people understand how to move through those places of challenges and turn them into assets.
Well, those are definite tools that everybody should need to know. I was actually curious, what is your impression of the total eclipse that's supposed to occur in this August, actually?
Well, a total eclipse is different than a partial eclipse in that the sun is completely, it's at its least brilliant point ever. And this moment has enormous impact on an energetic level for people. This particular eclipse this year is easily the most intense eclipse that's happened in our lifetimes.
Right.
And you could probably even say of this entire century. And the reason for that is that there are a whole number of planets that are forming a square around the zodiacal chart. And this is called a grand cross or a grand square. And when one of these occurs, in and of itself, even without the solar eclipse, it lends enormous intensity to life, and it can be an energy of implosion when the energies are not used constructively. It can be an implosive and very destructive energy. And when we take that energy and use it constructively and aim ourselves to work with it very constructively, it can be an enormous asset. It can turn our entire lives in a new direction. So this particular solar eclipse is very profound in that it involves a grand cross, and the solar eclipse is actually one of the points on the grand cross. And so it's calling us to focus on how to really harness ourselves in a positive and loving way to be constructive with this energy and bring out the best of ourselves. It's very tempting at a time like this to just feel overwhelmed. What happens with solar eclipses is that for approximately 3 months before the solar eclipse and 6 months after the solar eclipse, the energy is in effect already. So we're already, as of say the middle of May, this eclipse is happening on August 11th. So from about the middle of May, the acceleration has already been felt, and we've all been feeling enormously pressured on some level. Maybe not literally, but on a undercurrent level, we're feeling this push to resolve things in our lives. So it's a very important time to simplify as much as possible in our lives and get the debris out of the way so that when the actual eclipse comes along, we're in a much more peaceful place with ourselves, and we won't be quite so hard on ourselves at that time. This particular eclipse carries the implications of bringing about a lot of conflict from minor factions within society. And so it's really important to think constructively and bring our kindest thoughts out and put out the highest prayers we can for forgiveness and for easing conflict at this time, not just in the world out there, but within ourselves personally and within our direct community.
Well, what kind of organizations exist that actually promote awareness and understanding of astrology?
There's a national organization called the National Council for Geocosmic Research, NCGR, and that organization has small groups all throughout the United States. There's a local chapter here which gives talks about once a month, And these are open to all people. You don't have to be a member to come to these meetings. And they'll have astrologers speaking on different topics. And it's a wonderful way to get to know different attitudes and approaches to astrology. And the person to call about that would be Beth Wilson. She's vice president of NCGR in this area. And her phone number is 929, excuse me, Beth Wilson's phone number is 942-9699.
I was kind of curious about the issues are a little bit controversial sometimes, but religion and or spirituality in relation to astrology. I'm sure you've heard some people think it's in complete conflict, and then others have them very well integrated and don't see a conflict in them at all. So if you don't mind kind of touching on those subjects and your opinion on them.
Oh, that's a rather large subject right there. That's even bigger than the solar eclipse. And I personally feel that all things work together. There have been many people that have approached me and have felt that astrology does potentially hold a very scary thing within it. And yet the bottom line is that astrology is about self-understanding. Astrology is about gaining knowledge about how and what your life is about. And that is the thing that is very threatening to some religions. However, astrology is not, it doesn't need to cut a person off from their religious understanding of life. It can work hand in hand with that. Incidentally, there are many references to astrology in the Bible, and there have been several books written on those references to astrology in the Bible. And it's an enormous tool for spiritual understanding in terms of healing one's perspective on life and understanding the interrelatedness of things within life. So, as I mentioned before, it becomes a tool for enormous compassion. Mm-hmm. Spiritually, it gives people an enormous boost and much greater perspective on life all the way around.
Well, you had mentioned the word healing, and I like to cover a lot of alternative forms of it. Actually, again, using the term alternative loosely because I've been around a long time, such as herbs or, what have you. But I was actually wondering, how does healing come about through astrology? Like more physical healing or people's concerns today as far as maybe not going the traditional route of Western medicine. How could astrology come into play with that?
The astrological chart of a human being includes the understanding of the person's physical health. So when I look at a person's chart, I can understand by looking at that where the person's physical weaknesses are. And so you can look at that and use it as a tool for strengthening the body in that area. Also a tool for building the physical health so that it becomes much more vibrant all the way around. And each of us is very unique, as you well know. Mm-hmm. So it's fascinating, really, to see. And the whole chart in itself can be read so many different ways. There are many, many different kinds of astrology, and each approach to astrology has much value. So it really is a matter of the quality of the person doing the readings more than the actual type of astrology. And each one of these approaches has a different source of healing that the astrologer can bring to the person that they're working with. In Vedic astrology, which is an East Indian approach to astrology, they use jewels and gemstones to counterbalance the effects of the planets at a person's birth. And that's one approach, and certainly it has values to it. Yet I find personally that I would prefer to put the strength and power in the hands of the person that I'm working with, and say, here are the tools within you. They all exist within you, and it's really in your hands to direct your life as you wish. And that's where free will becomes so exciting. We all really do have free will in life, and it's our greatest challenge because we've all been taught not to trust ourselves and to pay more attention to an outer authority than our own inner authority. And that's where I feel that astrology has its greatest gifts, is to help us regain and restore our inner authority and live authentically as we truly are within, and show that on the outside.
Well, that sounds very interesting. Yes, I was curious about that for people out there that have never had their chart read or anything like that, or even know what their sign is. Really, just to start off from square one, what is the best approach in that sense? So from what I'm understanding, there is no one best approach. It's, whether you, I guess, get a reading done from a particular astrologer, or even, do you think, starting to read about it on your own, or do you think it's a little more complicated than being able to pick up a book and understanding? Because I understand there's a lot of different things about like moons and suns and different things like that. So what do you think?
I'm glad you asked about that. It's an enormously complex science. And even those of us who have been studying it all our lives just know that we've barely scraped the surface of it. So when one is just beginning to understand and look into it, if you can approach it with the understanding that it really is enormously complex and just keep an open mind about it, that would be very helpful. And I would encourage people to follow their intuitive hunches about where they're meant to begin. Maybe they're led to a bookstore where they'll come upon a particular book. I would really encourage people not to be very academic about it. Even though astrology can be a very academic science, and it involves a lot of studying and a lot of details, ultimately it's an incorporation of intuition and science.
Well, I appreciate it, Giza. This has been very, very interesting. I know we've barely scraped the surface, but I think this is a great introduction for a lot of people out there that either walk by and they happen to see something about astrology, or some people even that occasionally flip through a magazine and look to see what their horoscope says. So again, I appreciate it, and I definitely would like to have you come back and go in more depth about specific subjects within astrology. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Thank you so much.
So join us next time for Eyes.
You all know, if you've been following our show, Melanie Morgan, she always tries to maybe bring a little twist to medicine. Well, today she's going to have an interview with a very, very interesting young lady who's going to bring to the table something very different. As you know, we've done the Reiki Master. We've also done the alternative healing. We've done a little bit of astrology. But today we got a new twist, and I'm going to let Melody tell you all about it.
Hi again, I'm Melody Morgan, and I'm very excited to start off the new year following along the same themes that I did last year, which again include the alternative healings and different types of interesting topics like that. I'm very excited to start off this new episode for this new year with a lady named Shireen. I'm very excited because she's an intuitive counselor, and I'm sure you're wondering exactly what does that mean. She is multi-talented in different areas of healing, and I basically want to introduce her and have her explain to you what different types of things she does. Welcome on the show.
Thank you. As far as intuitive counseling goes, I usually use the tarot cards as a basic tool, but I pick up on people's energy and what's going on around them. So I think the tarot is more for them so that they have something to look at and to form a foundation so that they don't think I'm just picking things out of the blue. But I use that, and then I use a little bit of healing energy. I use crystals. some things that I've used throughout my growing up years, so to speak. It's just kind of like all come into one big area of healing for me. So it's been very good for me and for the people that I work with.
I bet. I know there's a bigger and bigger population and group of people that are interested in these topics, and they want to get more information. They want to learn more because more people are exploring the self. And I love that. And wanting to heal, issues and diseases and everything's all, intermixed. And you had mentioned something that you grew up with this, is that correct?
Yes, my parents started me off very young. 9 brothers and sisters, brought up with Edgar Cayce teachings. Our Sunday school was at home. We learned about reincarnation, and we learned about astrology. We were not the mainstream family.
No, it doesn't
Not at
sound
all.
like it. Gosh, well, where did you grow up?
In Florida.
Were you in a neighborhood or a certain area where that was a little bit more?
Oh no, we were just in a regular little neighborhood.
So how did other families respond, or friends, or whatever?
I was too young to really know at that point. My parents probably knew more than we did, but I just thought it was normal. And I guess all the other kids I thought might have been brought up the same way. I never knew that there was any difference.
Did you ever have any problems, or did you ever get teased about that, like in school, knowing more, like kind of being intuitive, or were kids fascinated? What was that
I
like?
hid it very well, because you start getting teased by it, and then your peer group starts telling you how you're supposed to think and what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to act, so you kind of like hide it, and you shut down. So I shut down for a while.
Wow. So in respect to that, did you basically kind of put aside things that you had learned or practice? Did you put aside practicing different things your parents had taught you until later on in life, or did you just kind of do it more at home?
I did it at home. I did it in solitude, and I hid from everybody. What I would read and what I would find out, I do it in private, and I wouldn't share it with anybody. That way I could just keep on going, and I wouldn't be, sometimes you go outside the norm, and then you hear your peer group or your friends say something, they cut you down, then you start looking at yourself like, maybe I am abnormal. And so if you don't go out there and put that temptation in front of you, then you can keep on going at your own speed, and you don't have to worry about anybody else.
Do you feel that any of that is carried around with you today, or did you kind of...
Oh no, I'm totally out there now. I don't care. It's like,
that's great.
Think what you want.
That's good. Well, you said that your family was like that. How did that help you in relation to things like school, even just academics, or to socializing? I mean, outside of, like you said, you had to hide it. Relationships that you had forming in those early years, which are so crucial. How did it lend a hand? Or?
I don't think it did a lot for me in my early years. I think as I got into maybe the last year of high school, that's when I started grabbing onto it and using it for my own self-growth. I started bringing it out of the drawers and out of the closet and that kind of thing. I started rebelling against probably myself because I was hiding it for so long. But now it's totally... Little by little, I started just coming back into who I really was. It was like a cycle, and I feel much more complete and whole now.
I really appreciate you being so open and honest about that and telling your story, because there could be a lot, I'm sure there are, not could be, there are a lot of other children that are brought up in the same situation and will feel different, and it's really unique and special that their parents are sharing this with them, or or whatever, but the frustration of not being able to share that with other kids, in those years where you're feeling awkward and shy and everything. So
oh, they need the support of the parents if they're feeling that way, and excuse me, the parents need the support of the kids too, because that goes both ways.
What would you say was your, biggest inspiration as far as, really getting into it full swing? I know you said you kind of got more into it at the end of high school. Was there...
I think my relationship with my father, he challenged me. He pushed me to the gamut. Sometimes you have people like that in your life, and sometimes you don't, but he did, and he kind of forced me out of the closet, so to speak. And it wasn't easy, it was very rocky, but you know, that's how I got back out there again. And I started opening up to friends slowly but surely, and I would pick up on things around them, and I started dabbling with the cards, and that's when I started with tarot cards. And I always had a Ouija board. And I hate to say that because people go, ah! But, okay, I'm going to say Ouija angel board. I used to use that. I used to have that since, well, I've had since I was 5. I still have the same one. And I wouldn't tell people that I was playing with it, but, you know, I knew how to use it. I intuitively knew how to use it. But I started doing cards, and then my friends started going, well, will you do mine? And will you do mine? And before
it picked up.
Yeah, it picked up. And then I started learning how to do the runes and any kind of divination type thing. But I would like to teach people how to do it too. That's more fun for me, is teaching people how to do it themselves.
Have you been teaching people, or is it kind of a, okay.
Yeah.
So
I've had classes.
Are they usually individual, or do you have group classes?
I have individual and group. I like to have group because they can interplay with each other and do readings for each other. Not large, like maybe 5 or 6 people at a time, but it's really fun. They find out that they can do it too, and they're like, whoa, I didn't know I had the ability.
Not to take away from that, but that really interested me about the Ouija board.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can remember, I can remember my friends, some of the ones that did have them, and would pull them out, you know, at sleepovers and everything. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. But I thought that was interesting.
Then your parents come in, you hide it under the bed.
And a lot of people tried to make it seem like it was really dark and real, you know, ominous, or, you know, whatever that word is. But you had mentioned in relation to angels. So that's the first time I've heard those two in relation to each other. Do you
Oh, the
mind
Ouija
explaining?
board and the angel? Well, it's like you're going outside of the norm to pick up on some information, and the Ouija board is just another tool of divination. It's like the tarot cards. Some people think you play the tarot cards, you're playing with the devil.
Right.
I don't believe in the devil, you know, I just like, I believe in energy and, and spirits. If you feel comfortable with what you're doing, and you ask for just the good of all to happen, then there's nothing negative that can come in. But you can create it. I believe that you can. So if you go in scared thinking you're going to bring in some bad energy, then you most likely will. But if you feel like it's going to be something that's going to be beneficial and in a positive nature and healing, then you can create that too. So it's just a board with a little disc on it. That's all it is. Not a big deal.
I totally agree. It's going back to accountability, you know, and I was brought up in a very religious setting, but also, you know, spiritual too, but I've kind of branched more towards the spiritual realm. And I thought the religious thing was a good springboard, but sometimes, and this is my personal opinion, so I might be offending some people, not meaning to, but I think sometimes people use the religion as a handicap, you know, for taking responsibility for good and bad that happens with them. And like you said, especially in relation to saying, oh, you know, the devil did it, or not to totally get off on a religious topic, but I totally agree with that.
No, I'd say they did it.
Right.
If you create havoc, and if there's havoc in your life, you've created it. That's all.
Right. It's not some other, you know, evil force that has come down and pick on you. I agree with that. Another thing you had mentioned to me earlier, though, you said something about you were apprenticing in feng shui.
Yes.
And also that you're an artist.
Yes.
So I wanted to kind of cover those topics as well. First of all, you know, for tarot cards, people have heard about tarot card readings, but a lot of people probably don't know. You know, what are tarot cards? What do they look like? You know, what exactly does that mean? And if you don't mind, this pouch right here has some goodies. Let's see, in here, is it the tarot cards, as well as some crystals?
Oh, I keep my crystals in there too.
Okay.
For good energy. They're my buddies.
And if we could get a shot of some of these cards. It doesn't have to be a really tight shot, but just... Anyway, I just wanted to kind of have people see, oh, is this not a good one?
That's major change going on.
Oh, okay. This is just to give an example of what one looks like. I just wanted to be able to show people.
The tarot cards started off as just a regular deck of playing cards, and then they started getting more meanings out of them, so they started just putting more pictures on, and then with the pictures that they added to it, more people could pick up more information from what they actually meant. It's like a little book instead of just, you know, a card, like a 8 of diamonds or something.
I guess I'll just show a couple others.
And all the cards, they're symbolic for all kinds of different meanings, but how they're placed in the spread and which spread you're doing, that's how you interpret it. And it deals with different situations with different people. So it's not like this is one word like sword. That's not what it means. It has many different connotations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, these are, the colors are very vibrant. They're very interesting.
They're friendly.
Yes, they definitely are. Thank you. And
You're welcome.
As far as feng shui goes, there's a lot of people that have maybe kind of heard those terms, but they don't know what in the world feng shui is.
Feng shui is the ancient Chinese art of placement. It works with the elements, earth, wind, fire, water. And they believe in qi, which is a good energy flow. And if you place certain things in different areas of your home, following like a bagua, which is an 8-sided like circle, like almost like a stop sign. And there's different areas that have different energy that correlate with your life. And if you keep the qi and the good energy in that area, then there's going to be, those areas of your life will be enhanced. The flow will be good. The qi will be good. Like your relationships, money, let's see, family, wealth, or career, different areas like that. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty right on.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who's really into that, and I didn't know. That's fascinating that it would relate to specific topics like money and relationships. I thought I was ignorant about it, but I thought it just more so had to do with how it felt in the room. Because I know, like something like, I think I heard if you place your bed, like the headboard under the window, that's not good feng shui at all.
No, that's a baddie.
And I know it doesn't feel good. Like I would know when I used to move around stuff in my room all the time and rearrange things, I knew that in certain spots it wouldn't feel right.
That's right. That's it. It's the feeling too, because you'll pick up the energy, and if you're intuitive, you can pick it up really strong. There's a couple of major key things that you don't do. The foot of your bed shouldn't face the doorway. You shouldn't have clutter underneath your bed because that creates bad sleeping habits.
A lot of people are guilty.
Yeah. And the closets are very full. Closets should not be cluttered. They should be nice and neat.
Wow.
Nobody should ever put any covers over their burners on their stove because that's a wealth center.
Really?
Yeah. And no dried flowers in the house because that's dead energy and it sucks energy out. And a lot of
Yikes.
cool little things, yeah.
Yeah, I think I need to have you go over some of that stuff.
Ruh-roh.
Yes. Some things were obvious, like the bed, but the dead flowers, they can look pretty.
And I used to have dead flowers, dried flowers all over my house too. I'm like going, and when I had someone come over and feng shui my house for the first time, those gotta go, those gotta go, and I'm like, those are from old relationships?
Right.
Oh, okay,
No
in the
wonder.
garbage.
Yeah, I kind of gotta get rid of that. Well, I wanted to have people know like how it works in order to get in touch with you and get readings and how all that works.
Oh, I advertise in 2 papers locally, the Carolina Woman and the Independent. I have ads in there, and they've been in there for about 5 or 6 months. It's going really, really well.
Good.
And my phone number's in there so they can call me.
Great. And do you have a particular place that you're working out of now, or is there a certain region? Like, do you basically stick to like the triangle, or?
No, I've got clients that I do over the phone too. I would say about 50% of my clients that I've been doing the last 3 years, I have not met yet. They've been over the phone.
Wow.
And they call about 2 or 3 times a year just to get an update on, what's going on in my life. And it's pretty good.
Is that pretty common, or is there any such thing at all like that in relation to doing this type of intuitive counseling through, is it through tarot cards as well, that you do it over the phone?
Yeah. But, energy is energy. I can
Right.
read it. I can do it through a phone line, or I can do it in person. It doesn't really matter. But I'm doing it over the phone, I let them participate. I shuffle the cards. They tell me when to stop, and I tell them when to tell me when to stop to pick the cards. So they feel like they're part of it too.
Right.
And next year I'm going to be on the computer doing a video cam reading, so people can see me doing the cards, and I can still tape it and send it to them, and they can watch. And I can say, this card means. So that'll be fun. I'm interested in getting that going.
I'm sure that's going to be really popular, especially with technology and how all that's moving.
Yeah.
So as far as people getting together and doing the readings, or even over the phone, do you find that there tends to be more male or female people?
More female.
More females.
I think men are kind of, okay, this isn't generalizing. I think, okay, in my circumstances, men are a little bit leery. I have a lot of male clients over the phone. And
not as many as in person.
No.
I think actually we are running out of time, so I
Cool.
didn't want to cut you off. Thank you so much
You're welcome.
for joining us, and love to have you back on at a later date, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.